Hello and welcome. This is the Zen community of Oregon, making the teachings of the Buddha Dharma accessible to support your practice. New episodes air every week.
Is rarely encountered when in hundreds of thousands of millions of ages. Unclear it, hear it, relive and maintain it. May we humbly realize and altar's true meaning. Take refuge in Buddha, take refuge in Dharma, I take refuge in Sangha. Very good to be here with you for this July session. This week, the talks will take inspiration and instruction and something of the spirit of practice from Master Hongzhi's practice instructions. And Master Hongzhi is an important teacher in our lineage and a very important teacher for this monastery, just in terms of influence and flavor. Master Hongzhi lived and taught in 12th century China, and he had a large community of practitioners that included monastics and lay people. One of the things that's said about Master Hongzhi is he was so dedicated to serving his community that he never left the mountain once he was installed as abbot. Although these complexes are huge and there's sub-temples and training temples, and it's basically like a kind of village. And ZCO, being in the stream of the white plum lineage brought by Maizumi Roshi, who carried forward two streams of Zen that historically in Japan, for sectarian reasons, are thought of as very distinct. Soto and Rinzai. Master Hongzhi represents the Caodong. It's the Chinese name for the Soto Dharma that is part of our inheritance in this stream of practice here. And he's known for promoting and teaching a style of practice called silent illumination or serene illumination. And there are texts, there's a whole collection of koan that Master Hongzhi and one of his disciples, I think, collected, and then Hongzhi wrote poems and commentaries to it. That's called the Book of Serenity, a very profound text. I think this is just Master Hongzhi's practice instructions, is how it would translate, and that's what we're going to be pulling selections from, Boncho and I, and using to springboard. I thought I would read the introduction to these practice instructions. So this was compiled by Monk Pukung. Please forgive my pronunciation. Maybe it's Fukung, I'm not sure. It says, Dharma words of Monk Hongzhi Zhengjue, that's Master Hongzhi, of Mount Tiantong in Ming province. And so this is the student that transcribed these. And he said, Hongzhi made vast and empty the bright mirror and saw through it and reflected without neglect. He manifested the mysterious pivot of subtle change, then trusted his fortune and certainly found the core. Only one who had the true eye and deep flowing eloquence could have mastered this. My teacher lived below Taipai Peak. Dragons and elephants tromped around. Dragons and elephants is a term for real adepts in the practice, awakened practitioners. And I don't know the difference between a dragon and an elephant, except a dragon's not an elephant. But the hammer and chisel of the teaching chipped away. That is, through his teaching and the practice, it chipped away at the delusions of the ordinary mind. The meaning of his words spread widely, but still conveyed the essence. Sometimes scholars and lay people who trusted the way asked for his directions. Sometimes mendicant monks requested his instructions. They spread out paper and wrote down his responses. He spoke up and answered their questions, producing appropriate Dharma talks. And one of the things I think is marvelous about this is just the stuff that flowed out of this person's mouth. He's sitting in a state of emptiness, which is full of potential. Someone says, "What's the Dharma?" And this is what emerged from his being. I have selected a few of these and arranged them in order. It's too bad that we don't have all of them. The compiler continues, the emptiness of the great blue sky, the flowing of the vast ocean. I have not yet attained these utmost depths, so please excuse my attempt to record his talks. I must await the ones who mysteriously accord with spiritual awakening to pound out the rhythm of his words and appreciate their tones. So one of the reasons we sit here is because we have some faith, we have some trust, we have some confidence, we have some experience or a mix of those, that there is something of real value to be discovered and uncovered in sitting meditation. And it might be like we see just the tip of the jewel of what's possible. We see the tip, and we know that there must be something submerged because we see the tip. You have some faith or experience that this practice does something beneficial for you. And that's the right way, the right basis to proceed. You want to be benefited by Buddha's teaching. Right? In however way you would give expression to that. And the more experience of that beneficence, the more faith we have. And then the more faith we have, the more we can have verifying experience. And so then these feed into each other. We have enough faith to start. The starting gives us some experience. The experience feeds our faith, and it flows into each other. And at some point, perhaps the distinction between experience and faith disappears. Those are the same thing. One of the possibilities in sharing lineage teachings like Master Hongzhi's from the old records is we might be able to get a sense of the profundity, the vastness, the trustworthiness, the refinement of the practice that we're doing. Nowadays, somebody could have meditated for 3 weeks on an app and they get on Instagram and say, "Here's my guided meditations. Send me $20. And people do. We are the recipients of a style of meditation and practice from a succession of people going back many, many centuries. Even if we said this particular flavor of practice started in the 1200s, it has a precedent, a yogic precedent that goes back 1,000 years before that. So appreciating the lineage teachings, it's kind of like a family recipe. A family recipe comes down over the generations and it becomes so delicious because it was respected, but it was also adjusted. It was tweaked with love. Yeah, Grandma really knew how to make cornbread, but a little bit more butter. Yeah. And then we recognize this is something special. So we can choose to receive this recipe. We can choose to be heirs to this particular kind of understanding and approach to awakening. And that's what a lineage is. It's too bad that sometimes we come into a lineage place and we go, well, I know that you guys are Zen, but I do X, Y, Z. So I'm going to sit here and just do what I do. Because the whole system and the way the teachers are training is aimed towards carrying forth the family recipe. Now, to speak to the benefit of that through choosing to be heirs to a flavor of practice, imperfect and conflicted as you and I might be, we can taste the very same thing these people have been tasting. We cook it up and we're like, yes, that's damn tasty. Don't mess with it. Or if you mess with it, be very careful. Don't just haphazardly throw some ingredient in there. And then we become part of the succession and transmission. Whether we sit here, sit there, it doesn't matter. We're part of the transmission of something refined, vital, and unusual. Now, a good way to hear probably all Buddhist teachings, but at least Chan and Zen teachings, Chan is Chinese Zen, is that they are talking directly about your mind. They're talking directly about my mind. Even when we don't understand it, even when we go, what's an invisible ox leaping over the moon? I don't get it. Still, that invisible ox backflipping over the moon, they're talking about our practice. They're talking directly about our heart and mind the best way that they can for the subtlety of what they're trying to point out. They speak to the mind's anxious, ordinary surface condition, Hongzhi will. They speak to its depth. They speak to how to work with the ordinary condition. They speak to how the core of your mind is eternally unblemished from the beginningless beginning. All these levels are spoken to in these teachings. And so part of receiving a lineage transmission is just an attitude of, I would like to receive a lineage transmission. I would like to be penetrated, permeated. I would like to open to this. And it's that sort of humble, receptive attitude, then the teachings can land. Our soil is moistened. Something can be planted. This is true for the chants we do each day. This is true for Sanzen. This is true. This is pretty much true. Now, the teachings are directly addressed to you and I. And sometimes the language or vibe hits for us, and sometimes it doesn't. But what's offered here in this lineage, this practice, is a time-tested medicine for what ails the heart. It wasn't invented 20 years ago. It wasn't thought about 200 years ago. It is time-tested. Thousands and thousands of people have been part of this transmission, and very few of them were getting famous and paid for it. They passed it on because it works, because it's genuine. What's offered here is time-tested medicine for what ails the heart. So we don't have to be confused by the form of delivery. What ails the heart is thoughts, beliefs, and habits of action that we could give up. That's basically the Buddha's message. What ails the heart is thoughts, beliefs, and actions that we could give up, and that at some level we might know that we need to. So this section, I'll read it first and then make some comments about it. This section for today is called The Practice of True Reality. So Master Hongzhi, the practice of true reality is simply to sit serenely in silent introspection. The practice of true reality is simply to sit serenely in silent introspection. When you have fathomed this, you cannot be turned around by external causes and conditions. This empty, wide open mind is subtly and correctly illuminating. Spacious and content, without confusion from thoughts of grasping, effectively overcome habitual behavior and realize the self that is not in the grip of emotions. You can see that the problems of 1,000 years ago are not that different from the problems of today, as far as being a human. He continues, you must be broad-minded. You must be big-hearted, whole without relying on others. Such upright, independent spirit can begin not to pursue degrading situations. Such upright, independent spirit can begin not to pursue degrading situations. Here you can rest and become clean, pure, and lucid. Bright and penetrating, that is, your state of mind has become that, immediately return to the world, accord, and respond to deal with events. Everything is unhindered. Clouds gracefully floating up to the peaks. Moonlight flowing down mountain streams. The entire place is brightly illumined and spiritually transformed. And it continues for a few more stanzas, but for today. The practice of true reality is simply to sit serenely in silent introspection. There's some confusion in teachings where it says, sit calmly or have equanimity. And we think that's a particular way that I feel, like I mentioned last night, kind of after I have 2 CBD drinks. Or that's how I feel once I've arranged all the conditions in my life and no one's bothering me. My body is not bothering me. But that's small equanimity there. That's conditioned calmness. When Hongzhi says to sit serenely, it's a stance. It's a stance. It's a practice of being before the reactive mind. Because sometimes you feel serene and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you're sitting here and your body and heart are thawing because you're practicing well, and, well, there's a panic attack moving through you. You don't get to be serene there, but you can still practice. You can still have the stance of serenity, which is, I will not react. So when we do this practice, and this tradition was actually criticized even way back in the 12th century by other lineages because people performed calmness. That's the critique of the Soto school. People walk around pretending they're serene and calm. That's missing the point altogether. Feeling serene is not the point. This serenity is to slow down with how we react to experience. To sit serenely in silent introspection is to let experience unfold, to give it that space. Ordinary, habitual mind is always in this instant decision of good, bad. A feeling comes, we go good or bad. Thought comes, good or bad. The temperature in the zendo, good or bad. How the body feels, good or bad. To let experience unfold itself, to let it be what it is, that's what is meant by serenity. So the practice of true reality is slowing down the knee-jerk. There's another old Buddhist practice image that a practitioner is like an unstruck bell. And one of the ways to understand that is a bell is full of the potential to resonate and give off vibration. You can just breathe on a bell and you can listen and hear some vibration. But to be like a bell that's just suspended from its rope, you're full of potential, and yet the practice of true reality is slowing down the knee-jerk reaction to experience that is impermanent. It's basically light speed. And therefore seeing clearly within, introspection, right? And Buddha's teaching, a lot of it is really just emphasizing that meditation is a sober and direct apprehension of mind, feelings, and body. It's not a practice with psychological intent. It has psychological benefit, but it is not a psychological practice. This means we are not watching what we're thinking or feeling and deciding that's a good thought, let me think more about that one. Or let me make space so I can analyze my life path really carefully in the silence of the container. That may arise naturally, but to do that on purpose is to miss the point altogether. Altogether misses the point. A moment of true reality practice doesn't mean that we're involving with memory or good ideas or painful thoughts or happy thoughts or understanding about our life. Thoughts and feelings are appearing. They always have a shape. They always have a form. But what we're doing is just steadily seeing the dance of all this as simply phenomena. As simply phenomena. This is vital to understand. The content of the feelings, the content of the thoughts actually have very little to do with anything whatsoever in the practice. It's true, as we purify the heart, as we begin to rest nearer and nearer to the true reality, more and more love and compassion is what comes forward as thought and feeling, or less and less judgment and fear comes forward. But the content of the mind, watching it, monitoring it, inventorying it, has nothing whatsoever to do with the practice of Zen. That's really good news. You don't have to worry about what comes up. It's all, in a way, grist for the mill, which is unmoving awareness. The virtue of that, the brightness of that, the freedom of that is none of that which arises. Steadily seeing the dance of all this phenomena, and then there's a wonder and a deepening at being that which is not caught up. And Buddha said it very simply. He said mindfulness is knowing a mental formation as a mental formation. Period. Knowing an impulse as an impulse. Knowing a body sensation as a body sensation. Period. So as we sit, don't try to have good thoughts. Also, don't feed deluded thoughts. It's not about that dimension of your being. This is not a psychological practice, though it has profound psychological benefits, broadly speaking. The Master continues, when you have fathomed this, you cannot be turned around by external causes and conditions. This empty, wide open mind is subtly and correctly illuminating. This empty, wide open mind is subtly and correctly illuminated. The steady frame of awareness. The purpose of Sanzen tonight will be simply to clarify the method of practice that you're doing. All methods are unified in being about being a means of holding a steady frame of awareness. Attention held unmoving, within which the moving, which is everything, arises and disappears. And we begin to do this. There's a clean, clear taste of correct illumination. There's a taste, there is a spiritual nutrient that comes from experience without additive, without distortion, without buffer. Hearing the sparrows with nothing extra in the mind. Tasting the breath with nothing extra in the mind. This subtle and correct illumination is its own subtle nourishment. We begin to taste it as we settle. And you hold this frame of awareness with continuity, with real engagement, and it brightens, and it widens, and it subsumes, and it permeates. And this heart mind, we could call it awareness, is experienced as partaking of everything. And it's totally at rest. Suffusing everything and completely still. In the Mahamudra tradition, Mahamudra is an Indian lineage that has very similar emphasis and roots to the silent illumination practice. They emphasize that a practitioner is switching their basis. As a practitioner, you are practicing, switching your basis from the thinking, reacting, analyzing mind to awareness. When our basis is habitual mind, we can't help but be anxious. Really, the thinking mind doesn't do serenity. It can be impacted by the deeper rising up of serenity, but thinking minds, generally the thinking mind is either dependent, rebellious, or checked out. When our basis is habitual mind's litany of the latest desired solution to our lack of ease, we can't help but grasp. So it's exactly why we're here, so we can begin to break out of that prison. Hongzhi then says, spacious and content, without confusion from inner thoughts of grasping, effectively overcome habitual behavior and realize the self that is not possessed by emotions. You must be broad-minded, whole without relying on others. Such upright, independent spirit can begin not to pursue degrading situations. In this practice, we come into a kind of dignity. Naturally aware of the state of our heart-mind moment by moment, you're the primary witness of whether you're aligned or not aligned. When you're the primary witness about whether you're aligned with the heart or not aligned, then what happens? What happens to the opinions of others? How do they land when you're aligned in truth with yourself? You're the primary witness of your own goodness, or whether you're deviating from that. When you are aligned with your own goodness, because you're not being fooled by the mind, what happens to that part of us that seeks to get affirmed that we're good, we're doing it right, we're approved of? When we're aware of our state of heart and mind moment by moment, and therefore we align, what happens to our beliefs about others and how they should be acting? What happens to our judgments? My experience is that my disapproval of others is not really very significant. I have my alignment to tend to act from, and other people have theirs. In this practice, we come into dignity, because in this practice we have choice. We have that space before we react from the old anxieties and fears. And we can stay relaxed in that place. We can stay the unstruck bell. You could read this as Hongzhi talking about different kind of subtle stages that happen in the practice. We begin to have more ethical alignment. We begin to behave internally and externally in a way that we more and more are aligned. That we know that. We're the primary witness to that. And because of that, the mind can get brighter and clearer. It can be more at peace. When we are out of alignment in ourselves, no matter how good you are at concentration, that peace is going to be elusive. That's why we emphasize the precepts. So he continues and he says, here you can rest. Doesn't mean you're not working hard to maintain that alignment. You may very well be. But there's a kind of rest. There's a kind of static of the heart that we don't have to deal with. Here you can rest and become clean, pure, and lucid. Clean, pure, and lucid. So see and feel how it feels when you are really taking care of your practice. Actually, I think when I'm really taking care of my practice, I don't have the time to analyze how others are practicing. When I'm really taking care of my practice, my eyes don't really wander around the zendo. I'm really taking care of my practice in a way nobody else exists. until they do, until I need to bow as I pass somebody, until I need to be mindful of how I put the dish in front of their bowls. See how it feels when you fully mind the business that is yours to mind. We're social creatures. We're wired. We're definitely socialized to always be minding the business of other people. And yet, it's interesting. In the different traditions of Buddhism, and probably you would find this in other contemplative traditions, they speak about doing spiritual practice as the highest and most central task of a human being's life. It's a more central task and a higher task than everything else. And the belief is that when we take care of that, everything else flows from the right place. So in Zen, this is called the great matter of life and death. And maybe, if you're like me, you first come to this and all you want is a little relief from the turmoil of your mind. All you want is a little relief from your suffering. And then bit by bit you realize this is really profound what we're up to here. It's not just about a little mental relief. The Buddha said, one fully engaged in the practice is doing what needs to be done in this lifetime. Doing what needs to be done. Spacious and content without confusion from inner thoughts of grasping. Don't be confused by them. Know them for what they are. This is what I meant by honesty about the ego's display. And when we first start to take this in, to consider that this is a truth about our mind, it can be kind of dismaying to see how much of the thinking mind is fearful, self-centered, and grasping. It's a lot of it, frankly. It's a whole lot of it. Now, everybody has love shining through them because that's our deeper basis. But generally, a whole lot of the mind is inner thoughts of grasping, even if it masquerades as caring for others. So we're sitting here, awake, intimate with our bodily experience, letting things flow, and not being fooled. Not being fooled. I think you'll find that as you actually get closer to a ripening of your practice, the mind says, well, how about this? How about when so-and-so said this to you 10 years ago? Or how about that really good meal? Or how about, this opportunity or that? You'll find that it tosses out bait. And if we're not wakeful, if we're not really on it, we will get captured by it and temporarily knocked off our seat. We will lose the thread. Hongzhi continues, bright and penetrating immediately return, accord and respond to deal with events. So we leave the Zendo, but we don't leave the practice. Don't leave the practice. Let's really make an effort this week to live in presence. Moment by moment, just function without leaving any trace. Just this. Very few things in session need us to analyze how did they go. Nothing that's said in any talk needs to be remembered. No meal needs to be, reminisced after the fact. So let each moment evaporate. That's what's happening anyway. And then you're available for freshness. Then you are continually practicing. Bright and penetrating, immediately return, accord and respond to deal with events. Accord in our response to events. Now, when you begin to really sit, not being involved in the content of mind on a personality level, you see that you don't have a fixed self. It's plain as day. You see that you don't have a fixed self. The center is all space and energy. If you put awareness on where you might think there's a self, you will never find it. If you look in a thought for a self, you'll just find thoughts. If you look at feelings for an owner of them, you'll never find it. It's all space and energy. You're pure creativity. It's such a relief. Sitting, see that you don't have a fixed self. And that means we can easily shapeshift. All the time we easily shapeshift. Right? Just like you don't talk to a mailman like you talk to your baby, I hope. That doesn't take any special effort. You don't have to think about that in advance. You don't have to say, when the mailman comes, I'm going to stop saying, ooh, la la la, or whatever. Isn't it weird if you just kind of catch someone talking to a child, like out of context? You would never do that with somebody else. You switch because you have no fixed self. You're not stuck on any mode of being. And we're amplifying that quality. We're making that more available. So sitting and seeing that no self can be seen, this is just, if you do the experiment, it's inarguable. You translate that into deep flexibility that we offer each other. It's not that hard to drop the preference about whether someone chews loudly or quietly. It's not that hard to drop the preference about the sound of someone's breathing. It's not that hard because you have no fixed self. And so we translate this into deep flexibility that we offer each other, we offer the session vessel, and we offer ourselves freedom from rigidity. It sucks to be rigid. I don't think anybody likes the feeling of rigidity, which is not the same as dignity. Master Hongzhi, being a man, a man of hyper-literate China, expresses his experience of this poetically, saying, "Everything is unhindered, like clouds gracefully floating up to the peaks. Moonlight glitteringly flowing down the mountain streams. The entire place is brightly illumined and spiritually transformed." He's trying to convey something of what it would be like to be Hongzhi. What it would be like to deeply put these things into practice and let them change us. So we're off to a good start and we're laying the groundwork for the rest of the week. It's going to be a little bit hotter tomorrow. There's going to be that challenge. There's going to be a little bit more of the body aches come up, the complaining mind, that habit generally starts to arise. It's really up to you. Can you stay steadfast? Is your feeling for what's possible here deeper than being cozy? Is your faith in awakening stronger than being comfortable? And then we continue to lay a strong groundwork. And just to return to to summarize the essential practices. First of all, relaxation. Not as I feel so good in my body, relaxing as in I'm yielding my resistance. I recognize I'm averse to some mood, texture, or feeling, and I'm reacting. I'm tensing, I'm checking out, I'm complaining. Deciding instead from wisdom, I'm gonna wear this. I'm gonna be this. As soon as you be the thing you resist, the barrier disappears. This is not a rumor, or don't let it be one. I like the word yielding. It's weird. We think that our bodies are this accident, and that what comes forward is somehow like we're victimized by it. But especially when we're doing a deep practice like this, what comes through the body needs to be felt because it's true reality. This is why we sit still, not because sitting still is special. But we sit still so that we can deeply be one with, so we can be people who feel very deeply the light speed sensations that make up our life. So relaxation of resistance, relaxation of separation, holding steady awareness. If you need some clarity about how to most skillfully do that, that's what Sanzen is partially for. And then honesty about when our personality's narrowness is enchanting us. And the willingness to put that aside. That could go on forever. There's no end to anxiety unless you end it. There is no end to complaining mind unless you end it. There is no end to dissatisfied mind unless you end it. It's just self-replicating delusion forever. All of us know somebody who has spent their whole life practicing those things. Nothing happened to stop it. So we want to be just honest. The honesty is not that I'm a bad person because I have this. You're just a person, and that's why you have it. The honesty is, am I willing to stay closer to my deeper intention and give it up? Right? Like, am I willing to say, no, I'm not going to go with this state of mind again? And do it gently. And be willing to do it fiercely if that's called for. To know the satisfaction of being wholehearted as you currently know how. I'm not as wholehearted as I could be. I try to work my edge of wholeheartedness. Know the satisfaction of what results from being as wholehearted as you currently know how. In a way, the completion of a retreat and the way the heart is nourished is not because we had some flash of insight. It's more, how deeply did I engage my spiritual aspiration, which is more fundamental than any experience. If you are a resident and this is your 50th, 100th, 30th session, sometimes we are consenting to habits of going through the motions. Well, I don't know what could be more boring. We're putting coziness over real engagement. And if we're bothered by that possibility, that's good. We have to figure out, how can I, having practiced for all these session or all these years or decades for some people, how can I engage this fresh? That's the koan. When we have no fixed self, the past is a memory, even though it has imprinted our bodies. And so we can begin fresh. There's actually nothing in the way but ideas. So, each practice, each oryoki, each chant, each sitting, rediscover the practice. That's the way it is. You rediscover it. You're informed by your experience, and yet there it is again. What is this? What is holding awareness steadily? What is eating wholeheartedly? What is letting go? Rediscover. And then we can really make the most of this time that we have together. It's just so brief. So thank you for supporting me in this. Thank you for supporting your neighbors in this. And we're just getting started. So please keep the zest alive. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Zen Community of Oregon podcast, and thank you for your practice. New episodes air every week. Please consider making a donation at zendust.org. Your support supports us.